walk on the moon, sail the great seas, live in a tree house and do anything you please. Learn a few spells, be a bug in the weeds. Just read a good book, 'cause it's all you'll ever need. I like to read indeed. I like to read, won't you read with me? Follow these words and you will see. You'll like to read, want to read like me. You can find a lost treasure, race a horse with cowboys, fly through the clouds to an island filled with toys. Pirate or ninja, superhero or queen, just read a good book, 'cause it's all you'll ever need. I like to read indeed. I like to read, won't you read with me? Follow these words and you will see. You'll like to read, want to read like me. Want to walk on the moon, sail the great seas, live in a tree house and do anything you please. Learn a few spells, be a bug in the weeds. Just read a good book, 'cause it's all you'll ever need. I like to read indeed. I like to read, won't you read with me? Follow these words and you will see. You'll like to read, want to read like me. You can find a lost treasure, race a horse with cowboys, fly through the clouds to an island filled with toys. Pirate or ninja, superhero or queen, just read a good book, 'cause it's all you'll ever need.
Once upon a time there was a little girl who lived in a village near the forest. Whenever she went out, the little girl wore a Red Riding cloak, so everyone in the village called her Little Red Riding Hood. One morning, Little Red Riding Hood asked her mother,
"Mother, can I go visit grandmother?"
That's a good idea, my dear.
So they packed a nice basket for Little Red Riding Hood to take to her grandmother. When the basket was ready, the little girl put on her red cloak and kissed her mother goodbye.
Remember, go straight to Grandma's house. Do not play along the way, and please do not talk to strangers. The woods are dangerous.
Don't worry, Mom. I'll be careful.
But when Little Red Riding Hood noticed some lovely flowers in the woods, she forgot her promise to her mother.
Oh, what beautiful flowers. I'll pick some for my grandmother. This is such a beautiful day.
Suddenly, a wolf appeared beside her.
"What are you doing out here, little girl?"
I'm on my way to see my grandma, who lives in the forest near the brook. Oh, it's getting late. I have to go. Excuse me.
Little Red Riding Hood rushed to her grandmother's house. The wolf, in the meantime, took a shortcut. The wolf, a little out of breath from running, arrived at Grandma's and knocked lightly at the door.
Oh, thank goodness, dear. Come in, come in. I was worried sick that something had happened to you in the forest.
The wolf let himself in, and poor Granny didn't have a time to say another word before the wolf gobbled her up.
"I am sleepy. I will put in a nightgown and I will wait for that little girl."
A few minutes later, Little Red Riding Hood knocked on the door. The wolf jumped into bed and pulled the covers over his nose.
"Who is it?"
It's me, Little Red Riding Hood.
"Oh, how lovely! Do come in, my dear."
When Little Red Riding Hood entered the little cottage, she could scarcely recognize her grandmother.
Grandmother, your voice sounds so odd. Is something wrong?
"Oh, I have a cold, my dear."
But, Grandmother, what big ears you have.
"The better to hear you with, my dear."
But, Grandmother, what big eyes you have.
"The better to see you with, my dear."
But, Grandmother, what big teeth you have.
"The better to eat you with, my dear."
The wolf roared and jumped out of bed and began to chase the little girl. She ran across the room and through the door, shouting,
Help! Somebody help me!
A woodsman who was chopping logs nearby heard her cry and ran towards the cottage as fast as he could. He grabbed the wolf and made him spit out the grandmother.
Oh, Grandma, I was so scared. I'll never speak to strangers or stop to play in the forest, never again.
There, my child. You have learned an important lesson. Thank goodness you shouted loud enough for this kind woodman to hear you.
The woodman knocked out the wolf and carried him deep into the forest where he wouldn't bother people any longer. Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother had a nice lunch and a long chat.
The end.
The end.
Little Red Riding Hood skipped through the woods, skipped through the woods, skipped through the woods. Little Red Riding Hood skipped through the woods with a skippity skippity skip, skip, skippity skippity skip, with a skippity skippity skip, skip, skippity skippity skip. Little Red Riding Hood met a hairy wolf, met a hairy wolf, met a hairy wolf. Little Red Riding Hood met a hairy wolf, and she starts to say hello, hello. She starts to say hello. She starts to say hello, hello. She starts to say hello. Who are you going to see, Red Riding Hood? I'm going to see my granny. And where does your granny live, Red Riding Hood? Along the path in the woods. Would you like to walk with me, Red Riding Hood? No thanks, she said with a smile. Ah, ah, ah. Little Red Riding Hood knocked on the door, knocked on the door, knocked on the door. Little Red Riding Hood knocked on the door. She found nobody was home, not home. Nobody was at home. She found nobody was home, not home. Nobody was at home. Little Red Riding Hood looked in the bed, looked in the bed, looked in the bed. Little Red Riding Hood looked in the bed. Was it Granny or someone else? Oh dear, who was it in the bed? Was it Granny or someone else? Oh dear, who was it in the bed? Oh Granny, what great big eyes you have.
All the better to see you with.
Oh Granny, what great big ears you have.
All the better to hear you with.
Oh Granny, what great long teeth you have.
All the better to eat you with.
Little Red Riding Hood held up her hands, held up her hands, held up her hands. Little Red Riding Hood held up her hands, said, stop and leave right now. I said, stop and leave right now. Stop and leave right now, right now. Stop and leave right now. Little Red Riding Hood waved goodbye to the wolf, goodbye to the wolf, goodbye to the wolf. Little Red Riding Hood waved goodbye to the wolf, and he bowed and ran away, away. He bowed and ran away.